Yes. Now,
So
this was before you say anything. This was the single most cringe thing I have seen all year, and I honestly wanted to gouge my eyes out. I hated every second of watching this. I legitimately wanted to vomit. I could not process for 5 minutes what I just watched. My brain cells have spontaneously combust, and I damn near had an aneurysm.
So before we continue, I do want to preface that we will not be joking for the rest of this episode because what we're talking about here is serious and should be considered a crime.
Yes.
So we want to talk about Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona tweeting an edited clip of the Attack on Titan OP to show the killing of AOC and the potential killing of Titan.
Yes. So
So
specifically, he shows Representative AOC as a Titan that Aaron Yeager, who is supposed to be in this case Representative Gosar, jumping up in the air and slicing through the nape of her neck, killing her.
because for people who aren't aware, in the Attack on Titan universe, in order to kill a Titan, you have to go up, which are colossal, like 10-foot creatures. You have to
Not more than 10 foot. They're somewhere between 3 meters and like 40 meters.
Okay. But in order to kill them, you have to go up to their neck and slice the nape of their neck completely in order to kill them because they are pretty much impenetrable to all other forms of weapons on anywhere else in their body. So the idea that Paul Gosar would edit his face, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, all of these people, and show them depicting a war on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and on Biden is absolutely disgusting and should be considered a crime.
Yes. It is, in my opinion, a very implicit threat of violence towards the president and an implicit threat of violence towards a fellow representative. Because the context of the entire OP, if you're unfamiliar with Attack on Titan, is about like humanity rising up and fighting against the Titans that are keeping them shackled. And so having himself and Representatives Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene as the Survey Corps killing Titans is very much implying that Democrats like Ocasio-Cortez and Biden are keeping humanity down and thus must be killed to obtain freedom. And to really hammer home this fact, interspliced between having their faces over the various characters from the OP, there's various different depictions of imagery of military and border patrol and them policing migrants at the border.
Yeah. For example, they replaced segments of Titans approaching the wall with immigrants crossing the border and crossing rivers in order to reach the U.S., which is absolutely disgusting.
It is. It is inherently trying to dehumanize these people and also, in a way, drawing a conclusion that if killing Titans is okay, an Attack on Titan, and these people are comparable to Titans, that it may be okay to kill these people, which is despicable.
And this isn't the first time that we've seen threats against politicians. In her run for Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene put up several posters on Twitter having her holding something similar to an AK-47. I remember I'm not good with guns.
A type of rifle.
A type of rifle, and right next to her are pictures of the squad, which is an implicit way of saying we have to use our Second Amendment rights against these quote unquote communists that are in Congress. Like, so this isn't the first time it's happened, but this is the most, with Paul Gosar, it is the most explicit example, and he should be barred from Congress for doing this.
Honestly, he should, especially because if you remember last week, we talked about the fact that Paul Gosar did conspire with members that were part of the January 6th insurrection, whose stated goal was to kill members of the Congress and Senate, among them being Representative Ocasio-Cortez. So it is not unprecedented for Representative Gosar to be in support of violence against Democrats as a whole, but specifically AOC herself. And I want to give props to her because she
honestly, she is a strong member of Congress. The fact
and
that
a strong individual in general for all
the
the
fact
abuse
that
that she takes.
the fact that her first response was to go onto Twitter and say, "Well, time to go back to business as usual," is like, I feel so bad for her that nothing's probably going to happen with Paul Gosar, but she's doing so much work for the left and for
This country as a whole.
For this country as a whole. I mean, the fact that people still talk about her Green New Deal, despite the fact that she wrote that in her first term,
Yeah.
is astonishing and really remarkable. So we just want to say to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that we admire your work. We feel for you the fact that you have to deal with pieces of garbage like Paul Gosar and Marjorie Taylor Greene constantly accost and attack you. That we appreciate what you're doing, and you are making a huge sacrifice, and we only hope for the best.
Yes, and to Paul Gosar and his many fans, and anybody that thinks that this type of rhetoric is fine, stop, please. Political violence is not in any way good. No matter who it's perpetrated against, political violence only begets more political violence, and also political violence subverts the real ways that we have with trying to get people out of office, which is through democracy and law. Extrajudicially killing members of Congress, whether implicitly or explicitly stated, is a crime and is completely antithetical of what we represent as a country. We are not a despotic nation. We are not a nation that deposes of our leaders extrajudicially. We are a nation that is governed by laws, and we are a nation that values democracy. And if we are truly serious about that, then we cannot, by any means necessary, allow this to stand. We have to oppose this. And while I do know completely that Representative Gosar will not even receive a slap on the wrist for this, he should be barred from Congress because such behavior is completely unbecoming of someone in his position and is completely and totally inappropriate for anyone to levy against another person, especially when it comes to their political differences.
And what's amazing with Paul Gosar is that his entire family, all of his siblings, rallied up and gave their support to his opponent in his campaign. And they are still calling him a complete sociopath to this day.
Paul Gosar's family?
Yes.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, they completely said that he's going to be a danger if he is put in the Senate, or no, in the House of Representatives. And they were right. They were completely right.
I mean, from him associating with known Nazis such as Nick Fuentes, from conspiring with January 6th insurrectionists, to openly calling for the death of the President of the United States and members of Congress. He is a despicable human being. He represents the worst of what our American political system has to offer. He is representative of everything wrong and everything that's antithetical with this country and its stated values and ideals. And we cannot state enough that this is just disgusting. And I do want to take at least one moment to discuss his choice of anime as well. He chose Attack on Titan. And while Attack on Titan is a supremely popular anime because it is very quality for the majority of its run, it is known that this anime and manga series has come under controversy because it has aspects of promoting fascism and promoting anti-Semitic rhetoric, as well as devaluing, crimes of war. And I find it very fitting that, and I'm going to enter spoiler territory, so if you've not caught up with the manga or season 4 of the anime, please check out. But I find it very fitting that he puts himself in the shoes of Eren Yeager, who, by the end of the series, commits a massive genocide and is completely unrepentant of that fact. And I find that all the more telling, that not only did he choose this anime, known for potentially having fascist sympathies and having potentially anti-Semitic rhetoric, but him putting his face on a character that would come out to be the greatest villain of the entire series, who murders billions and is completely unrepentant of that fact, I think is telling completely.
Yeah. I mean, neither of us are fans of the show or the manga.
Anymore. I just want to say it was great, but the latter half of the series really just did not connect with me, and the ending supremely disappointed me, but this is not the time or place to really get into detail about that.
But, yeah. And you'll never see anything like this from the left. We don't advocate for the death of politicians at all.
And even if we do, it's usually not from someone with significant political power. And even if it was, they usually are like universally denounced
Like
by other members of the left.
The greater left will work to completely oust them as not being helpful to the movement.
Yes. And as an example of this, a little side tangent, I see people on the left, not big people, but like some people tweeting about Kyle Rittenhouse and his trial and making all these different jokes about how he's going to get raped in prison and how he deserves to get beaten and murdered in prison. Those people get absolutely lambasted by the left because that is awful rhetoric. Regardless of what you think about Kyle Rittenhouse, he's a minor, and also no one deserves to be raped or murdered. And so even amongst the left, when this type of language is used, it is universally shouted down.
Yeah.
So that really just also shows the difference between the right and the left in terms of advocates for violence and who actually advocates it and what level of power and authority they have.
Right. Overall, as much as we loved to bash on Holly and Cruz, we really needed to put jokes aside and say how much we really resent Gosar for doing what he did on Twitter.
And also for just not what he did on Twitter, for what he represents and what he encourages. And we know that he's not the only one. There are other members of the Republican Party that explicitly or implicitly do support what he says and does. And to them, they are also a wider part of this problem. And there's also media figures that do this as well, from Tucker Carlson to the late Rush Limbaugh to Donald Trump himself, and many people in the between, from Richard Spencer to Nick Fuentes to all these different people, Charlie Kirk. All of them are part of the same problem, and we cannot let them continue doing this. They will continue to do this, but we must oppose them. Call them out when we see it. Always tell each other that this is not normal, this is not right, and the people that are saying this are wrong for it, they are inappropriate, and they are despicable, and they are really trying to degrade the values of our country that we love and hold dear.
And I want to end this segment with one final question. How do you feel about Twitter's response for this? For context, Twitter left the post up, but left a warning saying that we find that this violates our terms of service, but we decided to leave this up as this should serve as an important context for what is going on. How do you feel about that?
I personally agreed with it, just because I feel that if it was deleted, people could kind of sweep it under the rug, but because it exists and it's there and people can respond to it, more people are able to, look at it and say, that's real. Because it's one thing when it gets posted on YouTube, some people could say, oh, that was just one random YouTuber doing it, there's no way he actually posted it. Or if it was deleted, if someone posted screenshots, someone can say the screenshots are faked. But if it's left up with a warning, people can respond to it, and people can go and see it for themselves. Meaning that there's an archive of it.
Okay, so you feel like it's a net positive to keep it up?
Yes.
Okay.
And I feel even if it's deleted at this point, enough people have engaged with the tweet that you can go to multiple Twitter accounts and you can see that it did exist.
Right. Because ultimately, if it was deleted, probably people on the right would spread it to each other regardless. I mean, it's already on YouTube.
And not only would they spread it regardless, they would try to gaslight the greater American public about its legitimacy.
Fair enough. Okay.
But,
well, I think that should just about wrap up all of our segments for today. Managed to reach 2.5 hours again.
Yep. These episodes are definitely long, but we do love talking about what we talk about.
even if our response is positive or negative, we do have a need to talk about some of these things for sure.
Yes, so I really do want to thank you all for watching and tuning in. We really love the support that you guys are showing. Please don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow on Twitch. Subscribe on Twitch if you can. I don't think we have a subscribe button yet, but if just follow on Twitch, and please share, comment, and like the videos. Follow us on different social media. And also tell us what you think of the new overlay that we have for the podcast for those who are watching this on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter, actually. We started streaming on Twitter.
Yeah, we definitely think it meshes well with our logo, which thankfully we've been able to use since week 2 and have been really satisfied with it since. But anyways, you can always catch the Worldwide Wednesday podcast every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I am your co-host, Sovereign.
And I'm Shiny.
And this is us signing off. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.